with our first guest, who is the president of Students for Liberty, Wolf von Laer. La. Got that right. And he's just going to kind of introduce himself. I know that a lot of our listeners might not be as familiar with Students for Liberty, but I want him to kind of give us a little bit of a background about himself and who he is. I want him to introduce himself to our listeners, and then also just give us a brief history about Students for Liberty and kind of what its mission and its goal is.
Thank you very much, Amy. It's great talking to you today. So my name is Wolf, and as you can tell, I'm not from this country, but I was one of the volunteers of Students for Liberty in Europe, because as Amy said, we are international. We are on all inhabited continents, because liberty does not know any borders. And we were founded here in the United States in 2008. Just a bunch of students came together, 22 years old. They saw that there is no activism on campuses. Amy described her story that she was alone on campuses most of the time, and there was no group that she could talk to, or other people who were thinking like herself and questioning the government and some of the policies that were going on. And so these kids came together and they organized the first event in Colombia in 2008. And there was a blizzard going on, and it was really bad. Flights were canceled, they were on the phone constantly. But nevertheless, over 100 people showed up during that conference, and they realized, wow, we have to facilitate this more. We need an organization to do this. And that's where Students for Liberty was founded. Now, 10 years later, we are here at the 10th anniversary of the International Students for Liberty Conference, and we will have 1,500 people here, roughly, probably more. And as I said, we are on all inhabited continents. We have leaders from Brazil to Asia and Europe and everywhere. And just last year, we organized 98 conferences with 20,000 attendees. And it's just wonderful to see that, because we are not only spreading the ideas of liberty doing this work, but we also produce leaders, because all of these events are organized by our volunteers. And I can honestly say, having been one of them, that most of the skills that I have today are not because I went to university, but because I was organizing events with 300 people myself, or because I came up with a training program and raised the money for it. And Students for Liberty made me grow as a person, and so I'm eternally grateful for that, and I'm very humbled that I'm now the CEO of the organization.
That's great, Wolf. I couldn't agree more with talking about how you've developed personally by being involved in Students for Liberty. I know that I enjoyed my 4 years at UNC, but I know that being involved specifically in politics has grown me and challenged me in ways that really sitting in a classroom never can. It really has caused me to think, and I think that you would probably agree that it's really our passion for this that drives us. And so if we're here, there's a lot of young people who are going to be coming. In particular for you, what was it about this message of liberty that really kind of you're passionate about? Why is it not, government doing everything for you? Why is that not attractive to you?
Right. So I didn't grow up as a libertarian. I mean, I'm from Germany, and libertarianism is not very well spread. I mean, there's a so-called classical liberal party, but they are just a variety of social democrats who have a little bit understanding of markets. So it's nothing compared to like libertarians here. But it really started with the financial crisis of 2008 and going forward. The narrative of the media and the politician was, oh, it's the end of capitalism and it's the fault of the bankers and it's greed. And that seemed like an explanation to say like, okay, planes fall down because of gravity. So it was very simplistic, and I was looking more into different answers. So I started to Google, and I was looking on the internet, and I learned about the Community Reinvestment Act, about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, but also about the role of the Federal Reserve banking system. And especially the Austrian economist Friedrich Hayek and Ludwig von Mises really influenced me a lot. Like I was reading that stuff, and I was studying economics in Germany at that time, and it suddenly gave me a whole different worldview. I could understand it more, I thought, and I kept reading, learned more about philosophy, and I got really excited about that. But there was no organization out there, and there was no party out there. I was a little bit engaged in party politics, but it was mostly about money and positions. And that was not very exciting to me. And then SFL came to Europe, and I applied for it because we are merit-based organization, so you have to apply. You will not be elected. We don't have democratic elections, any like that. And that really attracted me. This is one point. And the other point is really that we are not butting heads with other people. It's not about blue versus red. It's not Democrats versus Republican. It's a message of liberty, and we align ourselves with the left and with the right on where we can agree. And so this is so much more fun because you can talk to people and actually have a conversation and try to argue with them. Because if you say like, oh, I'm a Republican, and then the Democrat will just like not listen anymore, and vice versa. And so this is like much more interesting. It's much more open to other viewpoints, and the people that I've met through the organization are among the best that I know. And these are young people who are changing the world every day. And I see that, and I have the pleasure as the CEO of seeing this every day. And that's why I'm trying to really raise the 3.9 million. This is our budget every day.
So definitely here in the United States, we know that there is a huge, politics as identity, identity politics. And you kind of touched on it a minute ago where we have, blue or red or Republican and Democrat. Do you think that sometimes that is the greatest barrier to the message, is that, we want to agree where we can agree and, and be principled where we need to be principled? So is that the greatest, I guess, challenge when you're talking to students?
That is certainly true. And America is the most polarized right now. You could see it over the last decades if you look at the data, that like Republicans became more extreme, leftists became more extreme. And people don't talk to one another anymore. You said that yourself, like at the universities, it's then sometimes often like a very liberal bubble. And so the conservatives go to their bubble, and then they don't talk to one another. And so there is so much, people describe everything that these are the enemies, these are the bad people. And it's like, that's always the language that you hear. And I think people are sick of it. And that's also the message that we are on campus with. Like we train every student into the in persuasion, how to really advocate the ideas effectively, which means first and foremost listening to the other side. We have radical ideas here. We are libertarians. We don't hide that. Like we think we should get rid of like most of government policies, right? But first you have to like tell the other person and make them feel that actually you care about their opinion and that you have similar goals, because nobody wants to live in a bad society, right? Everyone wants to live in a progressive and not progressive but prosperous society, wealthy society where there's no like so much poverty and stuff. But they use different means. Both the left and the right often see there's a problem, that's the nail, and the government is the hammer. But that is too simplistic, and law often does not lead to the results that the law intends. And talking about that, it really increases our reach quite tremendously, and we see a lot of traction on campuses right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I like your analogy. We kind of always think that the government's job is to come in and fix it, and we're so busy fighting the other side that we are missing the government. We're missing what the government is doing to us. And, I think that's why Donald Trump won. I think he was seen as someone who was going to go in and kind of shake things up. How, as a libertarian, do you respond to the election of Donald Trump?
So I'm speaking only for myself, so many people have different opinions on that, and Trump really splits also the libertarian movement. Many people are very, very skeptical about him, especially libertarians, and some people are more excited. What I see talking to some of our supporters is, for instance, that they latch on to like one issue. Like Trump would be so much better on the Supreme Court. And then they're excited about that, and sometimes they seem to forget like all the other stuff where he's not very good on. So our approach is that it doesn't matter who's in charge, what woman, what man, what ideology. If they do something good for liberty, if they're going to decrease regulation, if they get rid of Dodd-Frank, fine, like we will support that. We are an educational organization, so we don't